Welcome back to Caitlin TV, the channel where we break down the biggest stories, controversies, and viral moments surrounding Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, and the WNBA. Today's story has fans completely divided. Social media is exploding with reactions, and many people are asking whether a major line was crossed behind the scenes. According to growing rumors and fan discussions, Caitlin Clark was reportedly furious after Sophie Cunningham was suspended, and some even claim she refused to play because she felt the decision was completely unfair. But what really happened? Was this simply a team decision? Or is there much more to the story than fans realize? Stay tuned because the details, reactions, and fallout surrounding this situation have everyone talking. What happens when the biggest star in women's basketball reaches her breaking point? What happens when a player who has spent her entire career trying to stay focused on basketball suddenly finds herself at the center of yet another controversy? That is exactly what fans are debating right now after reports and rumors began spreading that Caitlin Clark was unhappy with the decision involving Sophie Cunningham. As discussions exploded online, many supporters started asking whether the Indiana Fever were making a massive mistake. Some fans claimed Sophie had done nothing wrong. Others argued that discipline was necessary regardless of who was involved. Then came the speculation that shocked everyone. Rumors started circulating that Caitlin Clark was so frustrated by the situation that she refused to play. Suddenly, social media was flooded with reactions. Supporters rushed to defend Clark. Critics accused fans of exaggerating the situation. Sports commentators jumped into the debate, and the entire story quickly became one of the most talked about topics in basketball circles. But what actually happened behind the scenes? Why are fans so emotional about Sophie Cunningham? And how did Caitlin Clark become the center of another major WNBA controversy? The answers reveal a story that is far more complicated than most people realize. For months, Caitlin Clark has been one of the biggest attractions in all of sports. Every game featuring Clark generates headlines, social media conversations, and intense debates. Whether people love her or criticize her, one thing is undeniable. She commands attention unlike almost anyone else in the WNBA. Because of that popularity, every move involving the Indiana Fever gets magnified. That includes decisions involving teammates like Sophie Cunningham. Sophie quickly became a fan favorite among many Fever supporters because of her toughness, competitiveness, and willingness to stand up for teammates. Basketball fans appreciate players who bring energy and emotion to the court, and many viewed Cunningham as exactly that type of player. As the Fever continued building chemistry, fans began noticing how supportive players appeared to be of one another. The team seemed to be developing a stronger identity, and supporters loved seeing teammates rally around Clark during difficult stretches. But then controversy entered the picture. Reports, discussions, and speculation began circulating regarding disciplinary action involving Sophie Cunningham. Almost immediately, fan communities started debating whether the punishment was justified. Some argued that rules must be enforced consistently. Others felt Cunningham was being treated unfairly. The conversation quickly moved beyond basketball. Instead of discussing wins and losses, fans began questioning leadership decisions. They questioned priorities. They questioned whether certain players were being singled out. Then Caitlin Clark's name entered the discussion. Because Clark is the face of the franchise, many fans automatically assumed she would have strong feelings regarding anything affecting team chemistry. Supporters started analyzing every facial expression, every interview, and every public appearance. Social media detectives searched for clues. A simple comment became a headline. A normal interaction became a theory. A routine basketball story became a national discussion. Many fans insisted Clark would never stay silent if she believed a teammate had been treated unfairly. Others argued there was no evidence she was upset at all. Yet the debate continued growing. This is something that frequently happens when an athlete reaches Clark's level of popularity. Every situation becomes larger than life. Every rumor gains momentum. Every discussion attracts thousands of opinions. Soon, online communities were flooded with emotional reactions. Some supporters believed Cunningham represented exactly the kind of teammate every star player wants. Someone willing to compete hard, defend teammates, and bring energy every night. Those fans argued that removing such a player from the lineup could potentially affect team morale. Others pushed back strongly. They argued that professional sports require accountability. They believed no player should receive special treatment, regardless of popularity. The result was a fan base divided into competing camps. Meanwhile, sports commentators began weighing in. Some focused on the basketball implications. Others focused on leadership questions. Many discussed how important chemistry can be during a long season. As those conversations continued, rumors involving Caitlin Clark became even more dramatic. Claims started appearing suggesting she was deeply frustrated. Then some stories escalated further, suggesting she refused to participate because of the situation. Whether those claims were accurate became almost secondary to the discussion itself. The internet had already embraced the controversy. People chose sides, arguments intensified, and the spotlight grew brighter than ever. Yet what made this story especially interesting was how strongly fans connected it to larger issues within the WNBA. Supporters weren't simply discussing one suspension. They were discussing fairness. They were discussing leadership. They were discussing loyalty. Most importantly, they were discussing the future direction of one of the league's most important franchises. And as emotions continued rising, an even bigger wave of reactions was about to arrive. As the debate intensified, sports media personalities began examining every possible angle. Some commentators focused on Caitlin Clark's leadership role. Others examined how the Fever organization handles internal situations. Many wondered whether public perception was becoming just as important as on-court performance. This is where the story became especially fascinating. Caitlin Clark's influence extends far beyond basketball games. She attracts massive television audiences. She generates millions of social media interactions. She brings unprecedented attention to women's basketball. Because of that influence, any controversy connected to her immediately becomes national news. Fans know this. Media outlets know this. Organizations know this. That reality transformed what might have been a routine disciplinary story into something much larger. Online discussions exploded with passionate opinions. One side argued that Clark would naturally support teammates she trusts and respects. They believed loyalty matters. They believed chemistry matters. They believed successful teams require strong relationships. Another side argued that professionalism must always come first. From their perspective, rules are rules. No exceptions. No favoritism. No special treatment. The clash between those viewpoints fueled endless debates. Thousands of comments appeared across social media platforms. Fans created videos analyzing every detail. Podcasters discussed possible behind-the-scenes dynamics. Sports personalities offered competing interpretations. And through it all, Caitlin Clark remained the central figure. Interestingly, much of the conversation reflected the intense emotions surrounding Clark's career. Supporters often feel protective of her. Critics often scrutinize her closely. That combination creates an environment where almost any story can become polarizing. Many Fever fans worried that unnecessary distractions could impact the team's progress. After all, building a championship contender requires focus. It requires trust. It requires unity. Whenever controversy enters the picture, maintaining that unity becomes more difficult. This concern led to another important discussion. What kind of culture should the Fever be building? Some fans emphasized toughness. Others emphasized discipline. Many wanted both. Sophie Cunningham supporters argued that her competitive spirit represented exactly the mentality championship teams need. They pointed to her energy, confidence, and willingness to battle opponents. To them, losing that presence felt significant. Critics responded that emotional intensity alone cannot override organizational standards. They believed successful franchises must establish clear expectations. That disagreement became one of the biggest themes surrounding the controversy. At the same time, speculation about Caitlin Clark continued spreading. Every new rumor generated additional headlines. Every reaction generated additional engagement. The cycle became self-sustaining. Even fans who normally avoid controversy found themselves discussing the situation. What made matters even more interesting was the emotional investment involved. Fans weren't debating strangers. They were debating players they genuinely care about. Many supporters feel connected to Clark's journey. They admire her resilience. They admire her competitiveness. They admire her ability to handle pressure. Because of that connection, they naturally become invested in stories involving her teammates and her organization. As emotions grew stronger, one question continued dominating conversations. How would this situation affect the Fever moving forward? Would the team become stronger? Would tensions increase? Would the controversy fade away quickly? Nobody seemed certain. What everyone agreed on, however, was that the spotlight wasn't going anywhere. If anything, attention surrounding the Fever appeared stronger than ever. And as discussions reached their peak, fans began wondering whether the biggest consequences were still ahead. By the time the controversy reached maximum intensity, something remarkable had happened. The conversation was no longer just about a suspension. It had become a symbol of larger debates taking place throughout sports culture. Questions about leadership, questions about loyalty, questions about accountability, questions about team identity. For Caitlin Clark, that meant facing yet another moment where expectations were enormous. Every decision she makes gets analyzed. Every statement gets examined. Every reaction gets interpreted through countless different lenses. That level of scrutiny is incredibly rare. Yet Clark continues operating under those conditions almost every day. Many fans argued that the entire situation demonstrated how important teammate relationships can be. Basketball isn't played by individuals. It is played by groups. Trust matters. Communication matters. Support matters. When those elements are strong, teams can overcome challenges. When they weaken, problems can emerge quickly. Supporters of Sophie Cunningham believed she contributed positively to those areas. They viewed her as an important piece of the team's personality. To them, any action affecting her naturally raised concerns. Others maintained that organizations must think beyond emotions. They argued that difficult decisions are part of professional sports. Sometimes leadership requires unpopular choices. Sometimes accountability creates short-term controversy while serving long-term goals. That perspective also resonated with many observers. As the arguments continued, one reality became impossible to ignore. The Fever remain one of the most closely watched teams in basketball. Every storyline attracts attention. Every controversy generates discussion. Every victory and setback becomes part of a larger narrative. For some fans, this level of attention is exciting. For others, it can feel exhausting. Either way, it demonstrates how dramatically women's basketball has grown. A story involving one team can now dominate sports conversations nationwide. That growth is something many supporters celebrate. At the center of it all remains Caitlin Clark. Whether fans agree with her, defend her, or criticize her, they care deeply about what happens next. That emotional connection fuels the ongoing fascination surrounding her career. Looking ahead, the most important question may not be what happened in the past. It may be what happens next. Can the Fever continue building momentum? Can they maintain strong chemistry? Can they keep the focus on basketball rather than distractions? Those questions will shape the future of the organization. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham's supporters remain vocal. They continue expressing admiration for her competitive spirit. They continue defending her contributions. They continue discussing her role within the team. And every new development generates fresh reactions. What started as a single controversy evolved into a much larger discussion about culture, leadership, and the future of one of basketball's most talked about franchises. That is why this story continues capturing attention. It isn't simply about one decision. It isn't simply about one player. It represents something bigger. It represents the passion fans bring to sports. It represents the emotional connections people develop with teams and athletes. And it represents the reality that, in today's sports world, even a single controversy can create conversations that last for weeks. Whether you believe the suspension was justified or not, one thing is certain. The Indiana Fever remain under an enormous spotlight. Caitlin Clark remains one of the most influential athletes in the game. And fans will continue watching every step of this story as new chapters unfold. What do you think about this entire situation? Do you believe Sophie Cunningham was treated fairly? Or do you think the reaction from fans was completely justified? And if the rumors surrounding Caitlin Clark's frustration are true, how do you think the Indiana Fever should handle situations like this moving forward? We want to hear your thoughts, so head down to the comments section and join the conversation. The best part of this community is hearing different perspectives from passionate basketball fans who follow every major development in the WNBA. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like because it helps the channel reach more viewers who love discussing Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, and the biggest stories in women's basketball. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest uploads. Thank you for spending time with us today on Pro Caitlin TV. We truly appreciate every single one of you for watching, supporting the channel, and being part of this growing community. Until next time, stay safe, stay passionate, and keep the basketball conversations going. We'll see you in the next video.